Is he part of the MVP conversation at this point? Here was his teammate De'Aaron Fox earlier today on ESPN's NBA Today.
All right. You are averaging 19, 12, and 7 this year. The only other guys to do that, they're Wilt, Jokic, the Big O. They're only the ones to do it in NBA history, and 3 of the 4 of them have won MVP. So should the MVP discussion be ramping up over here?
Definitely. I think if we keep winning games, there's no doubt that he should definitely be in that discussion.
That's, of course, Malika Andrews asking the question, and Fox saying yes. Yes, Domas should be in the MVP conversation. He should be now talked about in that way. Ramie, do you agree?
It always makes you mad when I do this.
You're going to ask me a question?
Yeah, kind of. What is really the MVP conversation? When we say is Domas in the MVP, because I remember last year, I'll give you some context to my question. I was on the air elsewhere, and Ja Morant was making that rapid rise and that big leap in his development last year. And people were like, hey, is Ja Morant in the MVP conversation? And it was, in reality, it was a 3-horse race. It was Giannis, it was Embiid, and it was Jason Tatum. Those were the 3 legit MVP candidates. And then Jokic. Jokic was the third guy. And then you could talk about like some other ancillary guys that are sort of floating around the MVP conversation that might come in 4th or 5th.
All right, let me answer your question. I think if you say somebody is in the MVP conversation, they have to be at least in the top 4 or 5.
Okay.
That to me is legitimately in the conversation. If somebody's like 8th or 9th, if you're listing like, if you're going to the bench of MVP guys, they ain't the MVP.
He's top 5. I think he's legitimately top 5 in the MVP conversation right now. I think that's fair to say. But do I think Domas has a legitimate chance of winning the MVP this year? No, I don't think he has a shot to actually win it. But if you're asking me, should he get top 5 consideration and a few votes? Yeah, sure he should.
All right, so I'm going to ask you. This is something you hate that I do. Are you putting Domas in over Giannis?
No, I wouldn't put him in over Giannis.
Are you putting Domas in over Jokic?
No.
Are you putting Domas in over Luka?
No, probably not, just because of that one stretch Luka had where he was literally like the greatest basketball player to ever walk the earth.
Are you putting Domas in before you put Embiid?
He's right there with Embiid. For me, that's where the conversation starts with Luka. And honestly, that's
Hold on. There's one more name.
Okay, go ahead.
Jason Tatum.
Okay, that's
5 guys right there just named. So I
think he's right there with Embiid. I think Tatum is ahead of both of those guys, but I think he's right there with Embiid. So he's 5'6". He's right around there. Can he really win an MVP being the 5th or 6th guy?
No.
But if that puts you in the conversation, then yeah, he's in the conversation.
The first thing I would say, the exercise that I always do that I just did, I do it for a reason. Because people, they just go, oh yeah, of course, without actually looking at it, without telling me who you put in, who you put Domas in before the other names I just gave you.
I think that's part of the bubble effect that I talk about.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Where you see this guy every night, you're like, God, he's amazing. He's got to be in the MVP conversation.
And it's not, it's why you watch games and you got people like LeBron getting the MVP chance when the Lakers are like 7 games under 500. Like, it's not because I don't believe Domas isn't really, really, really good. He is really, really, really good. What I would say is the fact that we're even having this conversation is what matters.
Yes.
The fact that we're even talking about this, the fact that there are some numbers that people would throw out that would, win shares is one of them, right? JJ Redick used it. Win shares is big for some people analytically. Domas is like top 3 in win shares in the NBA this year. There are arguments that people will try to use. The exercise to me is not about whether or not you think Domas is going to be the MVP. The exercise in itself tells you all you need to know, that Domas right now is considered a top 10 NBA player this year.
Yes.
And
top 10, solidly in the top 10, I would say.
So when you look at guys, like you can go through it all. Giannis, we know the resume, right? Jokic, he's already done it twice. Luka, we know Luka. Embiid, we know Embiid. And Embiid has publicly gone out there and complained about how he hasn't been really in the mix as an MVP, right?
So tired of that.
And you've got Tatum. And Tatum, obviously, on the team with the best record in the NBA, and he's having a tremendous season. So when you have all of those guys, the easiest pathway, honestly, Ramie, you want to know how Domas could be a legitimate MVP candidate? If the Kings make the jump in the second half of the season. If the Kings are top 2 or 3 seed in the Western Conference,
that changes the
that's when
discussion
things
a bit,
I think get
for sure.
real.
I believe in Monty McNair.
Because if Domas can make, if Domas can be on a team that has, say, a top 5 or 6 NBA record, then his case gets that much more, significant. And I think it's tougher to turn him down and turn him away from that. If you've got the Kings as a top 2 or 3 seed in the West with a top 5, 6 NBA record, and he's doing what he's doing right now, and he's top 3 in win shares, and he's giving you triple doubles, and he's a walking double every night. That argument, that debate gets much stronger for Domas.
For sure. But again, the real conversation for MVP usually comes down to 2, maybe 3 guys. At this point in the season, halfway point of the season, you're maybe talking about 4 legit candidates and guys who could actually bring the award home.
Right.
Once we get usually to the 4th, 5th, 6th guy, it's like you said, Nick, a really good story and a really good sign and a positive sign that he's even at that point in the discussion, but we're not really talking about legit MVP candidates once we get to the 4th, 5th, 6th guy.
What I'm very protective of is making sure that as we move through this season and the Kings exceed expectations, not to lose our collective minds.
People don't get carried away.
Like we have to. What were your preseason expectations for Domas? If I told you Domas would have a chance of making the All-Star team, I think you would take that and run with it.
Oh yeah.
Now we're talking about, no, he's a bona fide All-Star, and he's a guy that could easily, if this team continues to win, could slide into the legitimate MVP conversation. That exceeds all those expectations. So as this season moves along and it evolves, let's hope they continue to play at this level. Let's hope Domas continues to play at this level. And I would also say one more thing about Domas. And guys are playing with injuries all the time, but we know Domas is playing with a broken freaking thumb.
Yeah.
That also is something, to me, that checks a box.
And not shying away from contact either with that broken thumb.
No. Nothing. I don't know if anything will shy Domas away from contact.
I don't know if I've seen him with more dunks than I saw on Sunday night in that game against San Antonio.
He gets hit in the face and head area at least twice a game.
All the time. He leads the league.
It's like he has a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade float head or whatever, like a balloon head. It's just like floating around in the paint, whop, 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 smacking people.
I mean, he's
just smacking him.
Damn near 7 feet. I'm sure his head is a large target.
He's a big dude.
It's proportional. It's just proportional, but it's still a big old head.
He's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's impressive. And I think, again, just the fact that we're having the conversation is
very cool.
Tells you how good he's been and how fun this season has been so far. 4:12, by the way, on a Tuesday. Time check brought to you by West Coast